Our next presenter will be Dr. Adam Davis. He's a longtime faculty member. His teaching and research include writing, folklore, linguistics, and medieval studies. Big round of applause for you.
Thank you for coming out. I've got 3 short poems to read, and the first one is going to, I want to go for the range here. The first one I'm going to draw on the medieval studies end of things. This is a translation of a very rare object, an Anglo-Saxon lyric. They didn't do personal lyrics very much. It was mostly slashing and hacking and killing dragons. And this one was published in Quarterly West. My Anglo-Saxon friends tell me that it has some standing as a standard translation now. I'm going to read the Anglo-Saxon first. It's only 19 lines, so it won't go on forever and ever. Leodum is menum, swilcha him man lockgivi. Willat hin he hinne athejan, yef he on threat chumth. Onjelig is us. Wolf is on ieye, each on odre. Fast is that eland, fenne beworpen. Sind on wel raue, wheras on than io. Willat he hinne athejan, yef he on threat chumth. Onjelig is us. Wolf is each minus weed last wenum dogede. Thonne hit was rainish weather, on each rail de good set. Thonne mitch said bear the cover, bogen belede, was me wind tothan, was me weather et la. Wolf, mean wolf, wena me thina, sete jedidon, thinra seldkumas, muren de mod, nales me de liste. Je høres to eadwaker, unker nach welp, byret wolf to wutu. That mon eade to slitteth, that nevre je sonnet wes, unker jed gerber. And that's just what it sounds like in Anglo-Saxon. To this people of mine, it is as though someone dangled a sacrifice before them. They talk his blood if he should come here in company. Oh, it is different for us. Wolf is on an island and I here on another. It is a fortress, this island, unapproachable through the grassy swamp. There are men on this island hungry to make corpses if they talk his destruction if he should come here in company. Oh, it is different for us. The tracks of my wolf ranged wide, and I bided, feeding on hopes only. Then the rains fell, and I sat weeping. A fighting man would lock me in the press of his strong elbows. What joy I had there. And oh, how loathsome it was, too. Wolf, my long thinking on you, your rare comings. These are the reasons I weaken, not the hating of his meat. Did you hear something, Eadwalker? Our wretched little cub, a wolf is coming to carry off to the woods. What no god ever joined, any man can put asunder. Our song of coupling, this. And when I was teaching a creative writing course at some point, I think a couple of you maybe here were in it, I mentioned that everybody has to do a graveyard poem at some point. And the student said, oh really, let's see yours. Didn't have one. So I had to come up with one. And this is actually based on something down in Forest Llewellyn Cemetery here. The town's oldest cemetery is middling well kept, what with mowing and trimming and plantings, except on the downslope by the ditch, that stone askew. Someone didn't love Mr. Buckaloo. Liquored up kids upset some, I believe, and there's a couple tipped over by the winter heave. Groundsman and kin shove them back into true, but nobody does a thing for Mr. Buckaloo. He was buried in 1918 by the script, but to judge by the other dates and the family crypt and taking location as any kind of clue, his folks didn't much cherish Mr. Buckaloo. How old? 34, 35, give or take? Maybe died in the war or the flu. Some mistake sparked the family to give him one sour toodaloo. By the road, all apart, tumbled down, Buckaloo. God knows you're past caring, but it's snake belly low. There's others rotten, forgotten, still cared for below under scrub oak and trash elm. What the hell did or didn't you do, you poor lonesome bastard, J. McLean Buckaloo? Midwest Quarterly took this one. For what it's worth, the initial image just comes out of a toy box that I had when I was a little boy that remains an image for me, and it was decorated with pictures of leaping buffalo. And the picture has stuck with me. Actually, our youngest son has that toy box now. Buffalo jump, buffalo jump, buffalo, buffalo, buffalo jump. What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want for Christmas, child? Bones. I would like to be white bones, hunched beneath a hard blue sky, where the dry grass yellows and the wind rattles my parts. Gone, gone, God damn it, gone. Dead buffalo, done his job and died. Beyond blame, beyond wanting. Go to the snake. Know that no one will defend you, not even you yourself. You will not decline the bite. He will deliver you. Go to the snake, do, without delight, and empty as the eyes of your lover leaving. I'll also read a short prose piece. I hesitate to call it a story, but it's not nonfiction either. I'll let you take it for what you will. It's called Discussion Day. And now I do my Paul Ryan. Actually, I should do that about 6 times. We can take up with our analysis from where we left off last week. Someone was just making a point about the place we have reached in our inquiry. Oh yes, Mr. Cassidy is here. Thank you very much. If I can then just invite someone at random to remind us where we were. Yes. Well, for me, I was just thinking that I've never heard of, what I saw when you know how it is, because they say there's been a lot of, I can't think of any now, and at any rate, it's strange how usually never more than one of them can be found. And you don't expect, but of course, other than that, well, okay, I can give you an example to put things in perspective. There's like 2 or 3 of each, but if you look more closely, I think they're really concerned with a variety of things. Not just drawing lines any old where, but backing things up overall, just giving the facts as if that's all there was to it. And that's just one way of getting the point across. I suppose you see it every day. The normal thing, if you can find the time, or if you can relate it in some way to something else that's going on in the larger sphere. A little bit of all these things has to be at work in any given situation. And which one you're going to choose, and how can you be sure, which one are you going to choose, and how can you be sure your choices matter anyway? If you're after something short and straightforward, well, that's fine for you, but other people have different experiences, and they draw different conclusions, if you know what I mean. Do you ever think about that? Do you ever have your own personal interest in the subject? Naturally enough, you'll find it easy enough to keep up with, but what about those who enter uninformed? Are you with us, Mr. Cassidy? I, myself, personally didn't look close enough to be certain of the whole range of possibilities, and I wouldn't take it on myself to make these sweeping generalizations. When you can't tell ahead of time what they're asking of you in the first place. Why do you think that is? The kind of people in charge don't really perceive things the same way you do. And who has time for exploring those archives in order to discover what they may be thinking or not thinking, as the case may be? Perhaps we could trouble Mr. Cassidy to give us an account of the facts under consideration? Very well. Perhaps you'll want to pay somewhat closer attention, perhaps? If you want to be up to date, which granted may not be everybody's cup of meat, you'll have to decide what is finally more reliable. The option that's been around longer, or the one that's been produced by a long process of trial and error. They would have to know ahead of time what they're seeking, but of course you never know except by the process of exploration itself, which is only deceptively end-directed, at best subject to the erotics of discourse, and at worst merely a way to pass the time. I can affirm that they enjoyed it, at least according to their own account and by their own best lights. At the time, we established consensus and approved, thinking it would be interesting, at least for the sake of inquiry. Still and all, at every level, there's the abiding dread that what we're really doing is producing the illusion of meaning by deploying the structures of language in isolation from any referent in the extra-linguistic, extra-mental realm, given the fact that we are all, in truth, unable to establish empirically, and this, of course, by the very nature of observational method, the existence of something that doesn't have to be observed in order to verify its own existence. In fact, you could come to establish a system of communicational rules by which any genuine attempt at an act of meaning is experienced as a violation, betrayal, oppression, at the very least as just plain piss-poor judgment and very bad taste. Agreed, and in support, I could note that although I don't know how well acquainted the majority of us are with the history of the whole subject, and given the need for leisure to get up with history, well, it's more than a little exclusionary, don't you think? Certainly, in purely rhetorical terms, he creates the impression of being well-informed, explaining not just similarity and difference across broad periods, but the patterns which organize the similarities and differences, and which ultimately become the subjects themselves of the discourse, and in the end, become the discourse itself. It's not that hard to find your way through it if you can keep yourself on task. I remember more like when we were talking about the other. And that's about it. Does it change at all? Does the whole thing have any bearing on larger questions if we shift emphasis? How do things come across? It's my sense that we're getting down to substances now. Unless you just sit down and listen to everyone's take on the subject, you'll never make sense of it, right? Because you're trying to use a terminology that is not yet available. But even that attempt is an act of faith in the possibility of communication itself, of meaning as such. Well, your mama should have told you you ain't never going to get no letters unless you write some. So you're saying sender, receiver, and message exist in indissoluble complex, even when the entities in question are unaware of each other or dealing with each other as heuristic and enabling fictions. You something. You do get more excited about more nothing and shit. Man, I don't know what those mofos have on, but it is some nasty shit, I tell you that. And what is all this shit anyway? Preach on, sister. We should be ready to explore the difference in our discursive paradigms without hierarchizing in exclusionary ways. Me, I like style, shape. It's what I'm all about, you know? I mean, does that change anything for you guys? Where she's coming from, with maturity and experience, you have to respect it. But on the other hand, how do you meet her on the same level? There's no common point of access. It's more like this is her own private conclusion. I hear what you're saying. Positional authority generalizes, universalizes. Well, duh. I'm not sure whether to ask what she meant by that, but I don't know that she's prepared at this point to try a different version. Hey man, do you have the least fucking clue what we're talking about here? Mr. Cassidy, if you have a contribution to make, please share it with the group. Let me recover my train of thought. I think I was about to say that, although I personally might have trouble with that, at least under other circumstances, and I might choose differently, at least I want to have the option to claim the freedom to choose differently. But I can see how it pumps you up. Okay, we can deal with it on that basis. If you want to get to the heart of things, but how exactly did she select those particular alternatives, excluding all others, is what I want to know. I'll be honest with you, When it comes to this, we don't have time for arguments. Was there anything here to begin with? In response, I'd say that in the first place, I was inclined to answer no, figuring the only legitimate question is, what do you not know about? But then I reconsidered, and I decided that for me, that clarified things. It was quick and painless, operating at the level of reality, consensus reality at any rate, just whatever it is. And the success of any project will have to be centered around that cold, hard fact. Don't ask me to prove this, but the themes could be looked at the same if you step back far enough to put them in some kind of perspective on the human scale of things. I don't know how to say this, but I disagree. It's well defined, and he's speaking as an individual, but he leaps right into the middle, so it doesn't matter how you feel about it. He never acknowledges the degree to which it's open to interpretation, the actual words, as if their meaning were transparent and non-problematic. Very good, go on, continue. I mean, like, who's to decide? The big difference for me, personally, lies in purpose, or at least in having a purpose, some kind of purpose. For Christ's sake, any kind of purpose. I still don't know how to describe this, but what I get out of it is, it's like that sort of thing is frequently regarded as being so great, but things never get resolved. We don't even know what the flippin' questions are, and there's the whole problem right there. There certainly will be some kind of accounting in the final analysis when we get down to the nitty-gritty, where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. Perhaps you have some insight on the situation, some concluding reflections for us, Mr. Cassidy? Me? Well, yeah. I'd just like to point out, my great-grandfather got really, really drunk this one time before he died. And he told me, like, when he was my age, he was up in California, and somehow it happened, well, he fucked this old movie star, Clara Bow. And not knowing anything about her, I Googled her pictures, and Jesus, she was just acres and acres of gorgeous. Yesterday, today, or 1,000 years ago. And anybody asks me, that is all that matters or ever mattered. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Cassidy, for those insights. Into you. On that note, we'll see you all again on Friday. Please be sure to have the assigned reading done and come prepared to discuss. Thank you.